Piastri, Prost, they sound quite similar, but according to some, they also race very similar and they're performing very similar as well. That's according to this article on the F1Chronicle.com. But who's been saying these phrases about the guy? Who has been making these comparisons between the current McLaren driver and a former McLaren champion, a four-time Formula 1 champion in Alain Prost, one of the all-time greats of the sport? Now, I have been waxing lyrical about Piastri in fairness. The kid has been performing incredibly well so far in these last few races. I believe he's like the form driver in the last 5 races in the European leg of the season as well. You know, if it wasn't for Verstappen doing so well early on in the season with those wins, both he and Norris. If you started the championship in Spain, for example, I think, then Oscar Piastri becomes the leader of the championship, and he's still up in 4th place overall anyway, so doing a really good job regardless. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at what's been said here. So, Oscar Piastri is flattered by the recent praise of his talent and potential coming from some very high places recently. Just this week, even though it's Piastri's teammate Lando Norris with the better shot at the 2024 Formula 1 driver, former F1 chief executive Bernie Ecclestone has hailed the 23-year-old McLaren driver. Bernie. The Australian, I think, is a magic guy, said Ecclestone, 93 years of age now. Wow. He would for sure be world champion within the next 2 years if the car keeps performing the way it is. He really stands out amongst all the other drivers. It's no surprise that Ecclestone is a fan of Piastri's, given that the boy-faced Australian is often being compared to Alain Prost, the driver Ecclestone regularly names as the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time. It's a comparison that I'm honoured by, especially because Alain was one of the best, most successful drivers in our sport, Piastri told Germany's Auto, Motor und Sport this week. I wasn't even alive when he was racing, no, not even close. I think he was born in 2001. Prost retired in 1993. In fairness, I was not born either when he was racing, so I can't talk too much. I was closer than him though. Prost had a very smooth and rounded driving style. He was very precise in his work. I can see that in myself too. Piastri even knows quadruple world champion Prost, 69 years of age, personally, as they worked together at Alpine just a few years ago prior to the Australian's F1 debut. I spoke to him a few times when I was still at Alpine, Piastri confirmed. It was incredibly interesting to talk to him, and he's also given me some tips. One of those tips may have been about how to minimise accidents and incidents, with Prost having famously admitted that he only ever drove a car to maximum 99.9% of its potential. It's not quite like that now, Piastri insists. In our time, you always have to drive at the limit. When Prost was racing, the cars were less reliable and not as safe, so going over the limit had much greater consequences than it does today, but you still can't go over the curbs every lap. Today, it's about hitting the limit precisely. If you stay under a tenth, you're too slow. If you go over it, the tyres punish you. It's a fine line. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I can see it, you know, and particularly with his win in Azerbaijan. I mean, I said it at the time, it was a masterclass. It was a perfectly driven race because he did just enough every single lap to keep Charles Leclerc behind him, despite Charles Leclerc having the faster car. And he also took the one opportunity he potentially had to overtake him, and that was an opportunity that Charles Leclerc didn't even think was possible, but he did it, and he did it successfully, and he did it with great style, so I can see the comparison, yeah, I can. Piastri, for me, is absolutely a future world champion, and I think as he matures, because now you've got someone who's had a season and 2/3 a season and 3/4 under his belt, he's only going to get better, as is Lando Norris in fairness, but Lando Norris is now in his 6th full-time season of Formula 1, he's been in the sport since 2019, so his rate of development, his rate of improvement will be a much shallower line compared to Piastri. I think Piastri in the long haul, whether it's Norris or Verstappen that wins the championship this year, you know, I would honestly, if McLaren keep up their development, I would personally back Oscar Piastri to be world champion in 2025. Said it. There, I said it. As a McLaren fan, I'm sure I'm not going to regret those words at all, but you know, that's my genuine opinion. I genuinely think that Piastri now is almost on a par with Norris. Almost on a par. And next season, when he's got a fair chance of the championship, because he doesn't have a fair chance this time, because, you know, effectively Norris is going to be favoured by McLaren, and rightfully so in my opinion. I'm not having a go at them for it, it's just a fact of life, and Piastri's accepted that. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one for sure, and I think in the future he will definitely at least challenge for world championships. He's arguably already challenging for one of this season, but I think he's a bit off, to be honest, in terms of his points gap. But yeah, what do you guys think? Is Piastri showing shades of Prost? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, keep it subscribed to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more articles on Formula 1 just like this.